what are your thoughts so far before we get into the details? What are your thoughts so far on Jersey and this relationship between Teresa and Louie?
Oh gosh. I mean, it's so tough for me to figure out who is the bad guy here. Between Joe and Melissa and Teresa and Louie. Obviously, there are a lot of red flags with Louie. But we've had these really, nice scenes, these heart to hearts where he wants to make it work between, her and her family, her being Teresa. Were those just put on for the camera? I don't know. Were these past couple episodes him, showing his true colors or, color as we're seeing right now? Like maybe. Is this like the evil that he really is, like digging up dirt on everybody, hiring private investigators, like shutting Joe and Melissa out of Teresa's life? I don't know. It's really tough to say just because the only reason I'm not 100% turning on Louie yet is because Teresa and Melissa and Joe have had problems for a decade,
Right.
well before Louie was in the picture. So I know Louie is probably not helping. I don't know if he's hurting the situation, but I don't know. It's really, really tough for me to choose sides. I'm hoping that the reunion will shed some light.
Well, but then also we had in this past finale episode where he said something to the effect of, and I know I have a photo here, that he hired PI Bo Dietl. And Bo Dietl, I believe I'm saying that right? Bo Dietl?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bo Dietl came out and said, I'm appalled. First of all, I wouldn't have the reputation that I had if I had clients going out there sharing that we work together. That just wouldn't happen. And no, we have never been associated. But this was a moment where you blatantly got caught in a lie. But then on Watch What Happens Live after the finale, Teresa's like, no, that didn't happen. No, he was just, upset, whatever. And it came into his head. And it seemed like she was trying to get ahead of it, like damage control. Cause she's like, you don't understand. When it's on reality TV, it's going to come out. So you said that and you wanted to throw like pasta at the wall to see what was going to stick, or the skinny girl pizza oven at the wall to see what was going to stick. And it didn't stick, Louie. So we got to get ahead of it.
Yeah, so Andy actually had something to say about this last night at the LA event. I think an audience member asked him about this, and he pointed out an interesting piece of the puzzle, because Bo Dietl did come out and deny the allegations, but Andy was saying about the terminology he used. He said he wasn't hired by Louie or Teresa. Andy seemed very, like kind of laser focused on that word hired, meaning that maybe he's just, a friend, a family friend, or knows somebody who knows Louie, and it kind of just like got out on its own. So Andy thinks there still might be something there. I'm not putting it past him. I believe Andy, he's our boots on the ground. He was with Teresa, and he hears stuff obviously that we don't. So I'm going to think that there might still be something there. I'm not putting this Bo Dietl, private investigator story to rest just yet.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of putting stories to rest, Caroline Manzo recently did Page Six's virtual reality, and that came out today, where she did the Mother's Day episode with them. And when she did, she said, I didn't call the FBI on Teresa Giudice and Joe Giudice, but I know who did. And I thought in my mind, I'm like, you wonder why this woman does not like you? Like, I didn't call them. I didn't call the person, but I know who destroyed your entire family, which technically was Joe. Joe destroyed the family. It's all on him. Like, you can't give blame to someone else. However, at the end of the day, if you know who called the FBI, it kind of affiliates you with that rat syndrome of the word that we're trying to avoid on the Real Housewives of New Jersey, because it's like, but you didn't do it. But your hands aren't so clean. It's like you dip them in the murky water and you're like, get it off.
I know, like for somebody who's trying to like distance themselves from the housewives after the whole Brandy fiasco on Ultimate Girls Trip, this is a line to, to share with the public, that who called the FBI, like bringing this back up after, years and years of denying you had anything to do with it or knew about it or whatever. But honestly, it doesn't surprise me. Jersey seems like a small town. There are a lot of like family connections here. Obviously, there's, you know, a lot going on. So I think that, when did this happen? Teresa maybe went to prison, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
I think that it's had to have come out by now who leaked the information. So it's not surprising that Caroline knows. It's surprising to me that she's going to bring that up and, like you said, dig herself back into a hole, because Teresa is not going to let this go. And Caroline's just going to become, the center of the drama again, which I thought she wanted nothing to do with. She was never going to be back on the show again. So I don't know, Caroline, it's reading a little thirsty.
Well, especially if you right now, like Andy Cohen just recently said in his book, his new book, The Daddy Diaries, that Caroline was offered a paycheck, that they couldn't come to an agreement with what the money part of that would be of that contract. So she wasn't able to make it. But then he also said he had a conversation with Teresa, and she at first seemed very receptive to the idea of Caroline coming back. And it was when he told Teresa, "I will not be officiating your wedding," that Teresa was like, "By the way, no, I'm not filming with her. That's not happening." And so he almost made it seem like it was like she was retaliating a little bit because of the fact that he was not officiating the wedding. But at the end of the day, I know that Kim D did David Yontief's podcast. And what Kim D said was, when Jacqueline Larita and Teresa Giudice came together in Vegas, Jacqueline dropped a bomb that Joe Gorga was a part. So Teresa's brother was a part of reporting them to the FBI, which would be massive.
Massive. I mean, I don't know, the contention there, I wouldn't put it past him. We saw on one of the episodes that Joe Giudice actually called Louie to warn him about the Gorgas, going into this. And to me, that was a red flag, because Joe Giudice and Louie should have really nothing. Joe Giudice should want nothing to do with Louie. Obviously, he's the new man in Teresa's life. I'm sure he's happy for her. But the fact that he called them up to warn them about the Gorgas is a red flag for me. And I don't know, Joe has always had it out for them. I don't know. I honestly, it's really, really tough to say, because I want to say I wouldn't put it past Joe Gorga to do this, but family, 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 they're all about family. So would he really do this in the midst of, I don't know, the chaos going on? I don't know.
Well, and to be fair, on top of this, Caroline also said on page 6's virtual reality that Teresa wouldn't step away from the franchise because she is so fame hungry. But in the Daddy Diaries book, he details that after a reunion, it was like 1 or 2 reunions ago, he had a conversation with her, and she was just crocodile tears. She looked like she was exhausted with the show. And he was like, honestly, I didn't know at that point, had this storyline for Teresa come to an end. And Teresa ended up texting him a few days or a few weeks later saying, "No, I'm fully invested 100%. I want to be back on the show." With that, after this season, fans were really kind of divided as to how do we move forward? Like, we have all of these other franchises being put on hold because people can't get together. And Teresa and the Gorgas are obviously, they classify under that group of people who we don't see how the hell you guys are going to come together and film a scene. Could you see Teresa stepping away from the show, or is there too much ego and pride with her being the last standing OG?
I'm not sure if it's the ego and pride on Teresa's side. The way I see it is she is New Jersey. I don't think there is a show without her.